All right, well, let's roll and let's kick this thing off. We have Stephen Errickson and Nick Park with us, and we're just doing our RE Plus wrap-up session here at Wrapup Renewables. And I just learned that you two are meeting each other formally, professionally for the first time. So the networking continues to flow. I didn't realize that. Well, these are both my friends. They should, should know each other, but okay. So that's a pleasant surprise. And we're back here in Tehachapi, so it's Sunday after the event. We were all there, got to network together. And I don't know, first impressions of RE Plus this year, guys? What do you think?
Well, definitely what I thought going into it. Critical infrastructure is still continually underserved on the preventative side. Requires a lot of help that usually isn't identified until a critical failure occurs. And then they want, somebody to put on the cape and fix it immediately in less than ideal circumstances. But altogether, I thought it was a good show. We got to connect with people that I've known traditionally throughout the industry, got to connect with some new people, and, always start the conversations with, how can we help you? This is what we do. And then take the feedback to see what people are looking for. And as I suspected on the last show that I did with you, there's a ton of people looking for people to help serve from a warranty perspective, a preventative perspective, and all perspectives on the MVHV side. It seems to be one of the largest areas where renewables is hurting right now.
Interesting. You were getting that same feedback from some of the OEMs, some of
transformer manufacturers. Transformer manufacturers more than anyone. A lot of transformer manufacturers struggling to service the assets, provide warranty coverage, even as deep as RCAs to determine if it's an OEM failure or if it relates back to a workmanship issue. But yeah, it seems like we spoke to more. I caught up with some developers, some O&M contractors that we already deal with, but I was seeing a lot of need from the OEM side as it relates to pad mounts and all kinds of transformers, not just pad mounts. We spoke to a couple people who were even looking for service on pole mounts as well.
Interesting. So, how do you think we got to this gap then for critical infrastructure transformer support?
Expertise.
Did it just grow past our expertise level, as an industry?
I think it's something that's overlooked because I don't think that there's a lot of people who have the qualified personnel to do it. I think a lot of people are signing contractual obligations, checking the boxes. I think they have a vast amount of knowledge in the DC side of the system because we've done it, but it's a combination of lacking expertise and the industry itself growing faster than the actual world can provide the experts to service these systems. And it's not just on the MV side. We see that on the DC side as well, like finding the qualified personnel. And that's why I feel it's important that we create those people, right? Yeah. We invest back into people, develop them on a career path and give them what they need to become these people. Because if we rely on them being found and coming forth on the lineman side, right? General linemen don't ever go after jobs in the renewable sector. They stay with the power company. They stay with companies like that. Exactly. So I think if we're going to increase the available skill set that's out there and put qualified professionals in front to service this stuff and the DC side as well, I think it all goes back to the roots, right? How do we develop these people and give these people the tools that they need to succeed?
It doesn't surprise me. Every time that there's a growth in any industry or area, it just sort of moving a weak link somewhere else, right? Yep. Your weak point becomes somewhere else. And outside of new projects going into the ground and being developed, we have all of these assets producing today that need that support.
Very true.
Yeah. Oh, good first impression.
I think that the MV and the HV side of things is underserved for a couple of reasons. One, that as far as O&Ms, third-party O&Ms having personnel on site to do it, because of the price structure for doing third-party O&M, nobody can afford to pay these guys what they deserve to make or what they're accustomed to making in other industries. The other piece of it is that we, with the birth of renewables and the growth, we went from power plants that I traditionally ran, where I went from, either one coal-fired unit with a steam turbine, one generator, one transformer, or gas turbine plant that I ran where we had 4 separate units with basically 4 generators, 4 transformers, to sites that have, anywhere from 20 to 3, 4, 500 individual generators, all those transformers. And it's kind of where, I went from working in 20 years in thermal where I had one transformer failure to go into renewables where now you've multiplied the number of transformers in the field exponentially, that you've got, and all of a sudden I'm like, why? I've never dealt with transformer failures before at this rate. But it's because of how many we have, so we have, at a 500 megawatt site, you'll have 250, individual, what we would call generators. They have their own transformer, not to mention the GSUs, in the substation. So you've got there, so the quality of the products went down, right?
Because the speed of production.
The speed of production,
Yep.
How many that were needed. So you got a little bit lower quality, I think, and then not enough people to service them. And when you're price or cost constrained, and not being able, you can't have at every site a guy that's a specialist that knows how to do terms, that knows how to build T-bodies, that knows how to troubleshoot, and it's a problem. Yeah.
Just on terminology and definition, I like how you compared it to, was it a coal gen you were talking about? You had one generator, one transformer.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's the definition of a power plant.
Mm-hmm.
So in wind, you have one turbine and one transformer. You can define one turbine as a power plant.
Yeah.
And then hundreds per site, we call it. And then when you get over to solar, you might have 4 inverters for one transformer. And I don't know how many panels behind it, but hundreds usually. But would that be the definition of power plant then in solar? Anything below that MV transformer?
Well, it's different because as Nick said, on the utility side now, in traditional builds, we were seeing one pad mount that was dropping the medium voltage down to 480 volts and traditionally distributing it through a distribution panel, right? Now you're seeing a lot of utility scale sites where every inverter has its own medium voltage transformer, and the AC side, except from that step down, for the most part, is coming into each individual unit as a 34.5 daisy chain. And as Nick said, right, to get these materials, we're increasing production as fast as possible, right? We have a new portion of failure where, okay, now we went from one transformer to, like, if you have a project that's a gigawatt, you could have 250 to 350 transformers on there that now you have to worry about. And a lot of what I see in the field when we get called on emergency calls is it generally leads to a workmanship failure before it leads to a factory failure, right? And it comes down to exactly like Nick said, these 34.5 terminations are delicate connections, right? And there's so many variables that if they're not done properly can lead to a bushing failure, T-body blowout, cable blowout. And now we've taken something that was critical infrastructure that was at a smaller scale and we have multiplied it by the hundreds, right? So, I mean, we oftentimes get calls on one project where we've had failed transformers, 3, 5, sometimes 10 of them in less than a 2-week span, just because of the pure amount of transformers that are physically on site to serve that project.
250, 350.
Yeah. You got the same guy making the same mistake on every termination
over
that
and
he
over.
makes. You can kind of follow it through on the sites. You could almost say, okay, the same guy did this one.
Yep.
4 of them down the road, the next one that he went, it's got the same problem.
Yep.
Nick, do you think we're like maybe underemphasizing the critical definition and type of work for a power plant in renewables compared to coal? I mean, I loved your comparison. One generator, one transformer. And if we use that, that's power plant. And every time you see that, it's more. But boy, in renewables, you'll send a whole lot of people out pretty quick to go work on, let's just say inverters.
Yeah.
The watts are lower, but the voltage is there, right?
Yeah. When I started, in 2012 into renewables, we weren't treating solar power plants like a power plant, right? So I went to my first site and I said, okay, let's get our, one of the things we worked on was we're going to put our procedures together for our techs and, what their rounds are going to look like. And in a traditional power plant, you had either 2 or 3 different crews a day that would rotate through 24 hours a day. And for each of those crews would do a set of rounds in the substation. Look at the GSUs, look at the winding temperatures, making sure fans were running when they're supposed to be running, oil, was the temperatures it was supposed to be at. Looking at your levels in your batteries, you would do that once a shift. And I went to my first one and there were none. And I said, they were like, oh, we don't go in the substation unless we have to. And I said, no, we are going to go in the substation every day. We're going to look at it. I said, if our GSU goes down, this entire site is down. So I think we're way better than we were at realizing that these are, power plants, and we need to, treat them like that. And incorporate a lot of the old school procedures that we did, which most of them were built, the initial sites I worked at, everything was, all the procedures, all the training was all built off a Navy model. Most of the guys that I worked with were all Navy power plant guys. So most of those, and still, if you you can go back and look at procedures and training programs today and take them all back to those same programs that the Navy taught these guys, and the Air Force too did a lot of it. Some at a smaller scale for the Marines and the Army, but mainly the Navy, was the big one.
Yeah.
And because every one of their ships had a power plant on it.
Yep.
Right. So I think we've done a really good job catching up, but I still see where, in our industry where we're not, we don't treat them like a utility scale, power plant. Yeah. But like I said, I think we've come a long way. We've grown up a lot. And one of the problems too, I'll shut up here in a second, is that a lot of the people that were driving these changes and this training are old, like me, Yeah. And our days are numbered. We're retiring out. A lot of these high voltage guys that I've worked with in the past that were my high voltage guys, I'll give them a call and they're like, dude, I'm done. I closed the door. I'm fishing.
That's right.
So we need to do a better job of training the younger guys up and make sure that they understand and, what's important in a power plant, what the pain points are needed, like what you were talking about, Steve. That's one of the things that I spent a lot of time doing this last week, is talking to clients and potential clients about what their pain points are.
Yep.
Owners of assets, what's hurting you, what's causing you downtime, because if we don't know it and we don't teach our guys to know it, it's not all just about, hey, I got to change broken panels today, or I got to do this, or they need to understand what eventually, puts the money in their pocket at the end of the day. And it's those owners being successful and, re-upping their contracts because you're doing, the best job out there in the industry.
Yeah.
So
more power plant people needed.
Well,
What a cool phrase too.
yeah.
I hadn't thought about it that way.
In today's fast-paced industry, having the right tools isn't just an advantage, it's essential. That's where ETI Energy Tools comes in. With over 75 years of industry experience, they deliver strategic procurement solutions that enhance safety, efficiency, and cost savings. ETI provides industrial tools, safety gear, test and measurement equipment, and heavy repair solutions, all backed by a vast network of manufacturers. Whether it's tool kitting, PPE standardization, or high voltage tooling, ETI saves companies time and money while ensuring they have the right tools for the job. Contact ETI at etienergytools.com to learn more and gear up for success.
Another thing too, like we obviously do a lot of work with OEM on the warranty side. Something else I see is, standard test commissioning the tests that are required to commission a transformer are a lot of times very lacking in comparison to what they should be, right? Like a lot of manufacturers that we deal with are asking for standard IR test, TTR test, winding, insulation, all these things at the NETA standard. But a lot of times what I see is that they're missing the request for power factor testing and capacitance testing on the bushings. That and even partial discharge. I actually saw a video on LinkedIn this morning when I woke up about a partial discharge that was actually not tested, and it was causing a leak in a piece of switchgear, and you could see the electricity flowing off of those components in that unit, right? So it comes down to a lot of what Nick said. A lot of the older gen guys who were used to taking care of this infrastructure and who were trained properly are starting to phase out, and a lot of the younger generation, my generation, is not following up as well on a lot of these procedures and the things that we should. And that's one of the gaps that I look to fill when we left, because this is not only important for the infrastructure, but it's also important to people's safety, right? Like if you don't service this stuff the way that you're supposed to, there's a good chance that you won't go home today. So teaching the awareness, teaching the understanding, and helping the clients understand what they need. A lot of times it's not what the clients need, what they think they need. A lot of times it's educating them on what they need that they don't know they need.
That's interesting. Okay, I like that it's safety and quality focused. But since we're on transformers, even just, holistic power quality tests on transformers, new and used. I did a couple of these with my friend Joe Chacon, Podge, a couple months ago or so. They're a little older, things need to be upgraded. And he convinced us, Adam, you can't just go off of the nameplates and the math. You got to do a real power quality test. And it was not difficult. We went out and gathered some data for about an hour and everything, sent it to him. He comes back with the report. So we knew for sure what we were upgrading and getting ourselves into. Yep. Power quality testing, too.
Yeah, power quality.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge, man. All of these things have a nomenclature where you can go on the nameplate and see those readings, but this is part of the importance of the power factor testing too, and this is why companies like Doble have such a large database available, because they have a database where if you're doing power factor testing with their equipment, you can actually access the database and compare your results to transformers not only of the same spec, but of the same age, because that power quality over time, just like on a module, it starts to degrade, and that transformer doesn't quite perform as it did from the day that it was first installed.
I love it. I'll move us on because I know we talked. We're gonna get you and your team back here. We're gonna talk shop on MV here in
Absolutely.
the near future. But what else, guys? Anything else? Impressions on RE Plus or trends that you're starting to see? Any announcements that you heard or have or anything like that?
I saw one of the things that I like doing is walking the floor and checking out the new gear. I'm a gear guy. I really liked Nextracker's new like eBOS system, their trunk bus system for connecting DC. I thought it was pretty cool. It's field assembled. Anything that can reduce the number of combiner boxes, reduce the number of times that my guys are having to have their hands in a combiner box, or tiki torch, as we like to refer to them in the field, is good. And so I thought that they purchased Bentech recently, and announced their new, their product, and they were showing it off at the show. I thought it was cool.
What was the name of them again, Nick?
Nextracker.
Oh, Nextracker.
They bought Bentech. So they make combiner boxes, but they make this, it's a cab system. It's basically for taking your strings and instead of going into a combiner box, taking them right into your home runs, doing the combining there instead of a combiner box. I thought it was cool. I looked at some of the new robots. I thought the AES has their Maximo robot for the EPC side for installing modules.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty neat. I saw some neat wire management innovations out there. It's a, it's a small piece, but it can be a very costly problem on your site, doing old school wire management that lasts for a year, doing it wrong on the front end.
Reducing the zip tie spend.
Yes, or applying zip ties correctly the way the manufacturer intended
them to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw some cool new stuff. I love that people are constantly producing ideas that I've had a couple years ago that I never did anything with. But the robotic side of things is cool. Everybody was throwing AI out there, and I'm kind of I'm very hesitant about AI. It's kind of witchcraft to me. And I kind of drag my feet on it because I look at AI as taking the place of my people, right? So it kind of, I wouldn't say it scares me, but I hesitate to, jump into it all the way. But there's some cool stuff that, that it can do for you. It works a lot faster than we do, figures out problems faster than we do. But I love walking the floor and seeing the new stuff that people are investing in and implementing in the field to try to make things. The number one thing for me is the safety aspect. When I see these guys in the field in some Midwest state, name any of them, and it's 95 degrees and 90% humidity, and we've got them out there. If it's already red roped, they're in FR, they're in a high vis vest, they've got a hard hat on, and they're sweating to death out there, and they're throwing mods all day long. If we can improve their quality of life and their longevity by giving them some tools to reduce that wear and tear on their bodies, I'm all for it.
Absolutely.
I love that one. Can I get a water, man, please, Jacob? Thank you.
Adam, on technology, I didn't get to see it. I don't know. I didn't make it to Schneider to talk to them. But prior to going, I was informed of a DGA technology that they invented that you basically install at the transformer level, and it can monitor a lot of things that DGA analysis does for them on a regular basis, and it actually develops a dashboard. So that could be, especially for the underserved transformers out there, that could be a worthwhile investment for certain transformers. Maybe not all transformers, as Nick said. Now we have hundreds that we're dealing with at the MVT level, but on the GSUs, your GSU goes down. Good luck getting, if you don't have one sitting, good luck getting one for 1.5 to 2 years, right? Which could be huge. It could actually end a project for almost 2 years and completely destroy ROI for an owner in that case. So I did think that was cool technology. Aside from that, like Nick said, the amount of robots being used impresses me, because, and it's catching things that some humans don't catch, and that's partly because I feel like there's a lack of thermal imaging that occurs in the field these days. I can't tell you how many times when I was on the DC side, I walked up to an MC4 connector that burnt out, right, and damaged a series of connectors that probably could have been avoided if thermal imaging was part of the actual preventative maintenance plan. Nothing against the people who were doing that work. It wasn't a contractual obligation based on the work. And that's why a lot of times, a lot of trends I see is contractual obligations. We're oftentimes checking the boxes. And that's based on a customer's request. But there's definitely good and bads to the technology. Like Nick, the AI stuff scares me a little bit because it's one thing to know what and I tell guys all the time, I still write bids traditionally. I still write scopes traditionally. I don't really use any assistance, but it's scary to think, and I've ran into technicians who have done this, but there are technician notes and standard procedures out there that are being written today with Chat GPT mainly. And that's scary to think about, So I think they're good tools if you apply them in the right way. But if you're going to rely on those tools and those tools only, I think there are some serious technical gaps that are being missed when those tools are deployed by themselves without checks and balances of people who actually have knowledge in the profession.
Yeah. you can't lean on that AI to
No,
solve your problems,
no.
because it's only as smart as we are, right? We're training it. The robot thing and the thermal imaging you were talking about, the other one is that Bulldog robot. And I own no stock in Nextracker. They're not paying me to say anything, but Derek Chase, a former colleague, well, still a colleague in the field in general, his Bulldog robot, it finds stuff that techs aren't finding.
Yeah.
It's constantly, roaming the field and doing thermal analysis and finding, bad MC4s, all kinds of problems. And it's fantastic. And they haven't completely taken the technician out of the process, right? So
Yep.
that robot is out there, driving the field, but it's controlled by guys in a control room somewhere up in Northern California. And they're actually looking at these finds that the robot sees. Their AI looks at it and says, oh, this is probably a future MC4 failure. And then that technician is able to alert the site team, hey, you've got, a fire ready to start out here.
Yep.
Their owl cam too. He's got, this camera that's looking for smoke, right? Which one of my very first site that I ran, Topaz, we had a big fire problem out there, right? We don't want to set the valley on fire.
Right.
So we had, during fire season, we had 3 different sets of 30-foot tall scaffolding built with a guy or a gal on top with a set of binoculars looking for smoke.
Run a lookout.
And calling, and we had, our site team would respond. Everybody had 20-pound fire extinguishers in their truck and rakes and shovels, and we would all rush out there when they saw smoke. And now this owl cam is doing it without putting all those, those people standing up there on a tower all day long. So, yeah, like I said, cool stuff. I dig gear.
I dig tech too.
When I mentioned that about the robots, I was actually talking about Derek's device, because I met Derek very early in when he was developing this at one of the Terrigen projects here in California. I met him, and I was actually scrolling through the other day, Nick, and I seen that robot found an MC4 whip that was just connected, and it was hanging in the field. It was just looped. And yeah. I scroll through, and I tell you, probably every day, several times a day, I see something that Derek posts of things that they found. Some of them are just serious, and some of the things are just things that just make you laugh, right? It's like, that's a stupid human error, but it makes you chuckle. But they are, as Nick said, they're identifying serious things that require manpower. So I don't think it's about eliminating the workforce. I think it's about how do we utilize the tools in conjunction with the workforce to better serve the client.
Yeah, we make jokes. I've never seen a robot movie that ended well, but we do need to use technology to help the humans.
Yeah,
right. That's the idea. Can we use it to help the humans? And yeah, replacing the human from standing out in the sun for hours watching for smoke sounds all right. Scanning sites to find wire issues and module issues and things like that sounds okay. The chat bots, to help with some writing. I started using them about a year ago, and I would say it takes like 60 to 80% of writing away from me. It's like having a small team. No, it can't finish it and make it perfect. But if I'm the expert, I can finish it and make it perfect, or if you, then you can. So you got to use it. We got to support it. It's not going away. But yeah, it's a situation where we got to put some controls on it so that we're not causing more problems for ourselves.
That's generally how I use it too, Adam. I'll write whatever it is that we're writing. If we're working on technical writing or a scope, or even just composing an email to a client, right? A lot of times I will put forth my thoughts. Sometimes I'm not the best at conveying my ideas in a professional way, but a lot of times what I do is try to get it to put a little polish on it, and then I proofread it, because you have to. But I don't think there's no place for it. I just think there's not a place for it to be used by itself.
So you write your email, say, could you take the Pennsylvania gangster slag swagger out of this thing for me?
Exactly.
I do love that about you.
Please install commas for me.
Yeah,
right.
That's right. I argue with mine on where commas should go.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Altair Energy Services, and their highly trained, expert technical staff, leveraging decades of renewable power management experience into customized solutions for everyone to meet their energy goals and contribute to a better future for all. Altair's team of hardworking, respected experts are providing full-scope, turnkey repairs, planned and unplanned maintenance, system upgrades, fully autonomous technical crews, supplemental staffing, and customized dynamic scheduling to fit your power production needs. Contact Altair at info@altairenergyservices.com and learn more about their wide range of capabilities across multiple power technologies and platforms.
All right. So cool. So some of the big things, focus on some extra safety, quality infrastructure, and then technology. Robots, AI, how can they make us better? How can they make the power plants produce more efficiently? How about networking?
I was going to say, sorry for jumping in, but
Yeah.
I was wanting to talk about it. That's probably number one for me at events like this, we live in a world and work in a world where so many people that we interact with every day, we've only seen them in a little square on a
Teams meeting.
Teams meeting or WebEx or whatever, and you've never met them in person. And it makes a big difference. I met up with a guy that is a former First Solar guy that I worked with when we were developing our module washing program and the algorithms for determining when it's smart to wash, when it makes sense for the client to wash. And I'd worked with this guy since 2012 or 13, and I'd never met him in person. And I finally met him in person last week at RE Plus. I think it's important. I spent most of my time networking. I had somebody that was with me part of the time made a comment to me that everybody that I talked to came up and hugged me. They're like, all your friends are huggers. I said, I'm glad that my friends are huggers, So I spent a lot of time, connecting, bumped into you guys a couple times, out on the strip having pizza, bumped into you guys. But that one-to-one, that personal connection means a lot when you call somebody at 2:00 in the morning on a Saturday night or on New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve or the 4th of July. That having that personal connection with them goes a long way, getting them out to help you out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's, and that's, what I always tell people, that's kind of my superpower is my network and the smart people that, I've built relationships with and networked with. So for me, that's number one at events like this is connecting and refreshing relationships out there. Because that's when, like I said, when the rubber hits the road, as my dad used to say, when, like I had an old boss that he always said it was, 2:00 in the morning on New Year's Eve. That's what his story always was, who can you get out there to help you? Mm-hmm. And if it's just somebody that you don't have a relationship with and they're like, man, yeah, call us on Tuesday, after the long holiday. But if you have these connections and people care about you and love you, they'll go out of their way for you.
No, and that goes to show, like, I know we were able to catch up with ETI, right? Me and Spencer are pretty close. Joe and I are growing to become close. And that was one thing that me and Joe were talking about, right? It's like I continually go to ETI for our tooling needs over larger tooling distributors because of the local hometown relationship, right? And I told Joe, I said, oftentimes, even when they can't beat price on some things, I'll pay a little bit more because when I get in the bind and I really need something and I call Spencer, he has it every single time, right? So like I tell him, I was like, I would rather put the money into local businesses and help support the renewables hub that we have. But even on the client side, as Nick said, right, it's like we deal with a lot of these people. They see the promotion, they see the posts, we deal with them on meetings, emails. I was able to reconnect with a lot of colleagues from Pierce, right? Talk about things that we need and just get side by side and more of a personal situation instead of a professional environment, out at the tables, having a cocktail at the bar. And a lot of times when you get to make those personal interactions, you get to remind people like, hey, we're all still people. I got your back. I know I'm on a different lane now, but I'm here to help. And if you guys need anything, I will always step in and take care of you guys as if I'm part of the team still. And that's important. And as Nick said, getting to make those face-to-face connections and see people, and even sometimes just remind people of those things. For me, it wasn't just peers. It was several people. It was clients. It was manufacturers that we've worked with, just people that we've gathered over the years through business relationships, and being able to reconnect those dots and put a face to the name and learn about people, not just in the professional side, but hey, where are you from? What do you like to do? What do you do when you're not giving me a hard time at work? You know what I mean? Sometimes it's important to connect those dots and build that relationship, because at the end of the day, no matter what service we provide, we're all people. And as Nick just said, who can I count on when it matters most to pick up that phone and help me get this stuff serviced?
I love this. Networking is hands down my favorite thing about any conference.
Yeah.
Being able to connect with people face to face, it feels so much better than, the picture on the screen or the phone call. It's hands down my favorite part of any conference. So, sometimes walking the floor is good and learning the new technologies and industry trends, but being able to meet with them off campus, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
For a meal, for a little quieter sit down, that's the real gold for me there. And even with, I think it's so heartwarming, even with competitors, networking together. Hey, we're struggling to do this. Do you know how to fix that? Right? And we ask the same thing. We can't find these widgets. Do you know where they're at? Right? And everybody helping each other.
Oh, yeah.
Or I've got a great opportunity with a new client. I could use some help. Will you help me? And everybody's a yes all the time. So that networking piece, it helps the overall end goal for, I think, our country, our society, of more energy and renewable and in the areas that we prefer. Now, maybe we shouldn't talk about it, but Vegas, it's like too easy for everybody to get drinks, I think. So then you have this other side where you're like, all right, you should not be at this customer meeting right now. You're going to have to excuse yourself. And it happens a little bit, but I just want to toss it out there to say, for younger folks or new to conference people, watch it. We remember, what happened. And we're happy to give a couple of passes and say, all right, next time.
Yeah.
That's not a good decision, but you got to watch yourself. And because it is so much fun to go relax with your friends and folks you don't get to see and have a cocktail, but got to watch it.
Well, they, the vendors, and it's the same guys every time, have their happy hour.
Yeah.
And I spoke with a few people that I could tell had made a few too many passes at the happy hour line. Luckily for me, I put that behind me a couple of years ago. It's still, a challenge. I went up to this one happy hour 2 days in a row asking for a Diet Coke, and they were already out, but I could have a beer. And I was like, well, how about a water? Do you have a free water? A couple of the booths, I really appreciated the latte bars that they had. But yeah, no, I spoke with a couple of people that were slurring a little bit. So yeah, you do have to watch it, because you can, and I'm sure I've done it and I don't remember it, but you can make a fool of yourself, at events like that.
Very quick.
I've got some very good stories, but I won't share them.
Yeah, well, the younger years, I suppose, that sneaks up on us.
Plus, I got to be up early in the morning.
Yes.
I have a hard enough time remembering people's names without adding alcohol into the mix,
Mm-hmm.
So.
No, it was good. We had a good time. I'm happy to say I was asleep by 10 every night. I couldn't make it to the gym each morning, but got a couple in just to get a little. I felt like I got enough steps in every day.
No kidding.
About a workout.
I can't say I was to bed early enough, but I was up at the same time about 6 o'clock every day. But
going strong.
There were a couple nights where nothing crazy, just enjoying the tables,
Yeah.
doing a little bit of gambling, networking, but there was several nights where I rolled in at 4:00 in the morning and woke up about 2 hours later.
Oh my goodness,
my candle does not burn that bright anymore, man. No way,
man.
Well, one of the cool things. Sorry to change the subject, but I was thinking about it. A couple of things that I saw a lot of people are into. Logistics. There were a lot of companies there providing logistics, warehousing parts for you, getting them to your sites. But the other big move that I think that to a certain extent we're asleep on, and the people that are on top of it, I think, are going to make a lot of money and be very successful, is the repower end of the business. Another former First Solar guy, Josh Froughton, he's got a little company called Renewable, and he's going in and repowering trackers. He's got some really, cool ideas and some innovations, but this whole valley, the whole San Joaquin Valley, is full of old First Solar trackers, and old First Solar Series 3 and Series 4 mods. So he's, and I'm just picking him out because I know Josh, and he bought me breakfast at the conference.
Hopefully at the Grand Lux Cafe.
At the Grand Lux Cafe, had a great omelet. Yeah,
he sounds like a great guy.
Yeah, him and Jay Shaw. Yeah, but that piece of the industry, I think, is wide open and is just waiting to be jumped on. And then tie in with that, with the repower, is the recycling of everything that we're saying, hey, this isn't efficient anymore. We've got, like I said the last time I was on here, we were blown away when First Solar handed us our first 90-watt modules. We were like, oh my God, this is the be all and end all. There'll never be anything better than this. And I'm installing 700-watt modules on sites, that are as big as a shower door.
Yep.
So I think that was cool too, talking to some more recycling people. But yeah, I think that if anybody's out there wanting to, invest or start a business, that repowering end of the business, there's a lot of the contracts are there, the PPAs, they're still going, and they need to be served. And if you can do it more efficiently and make more money by repowering, I think that's a big deal. And I saw, several companies are doing it, or jumping on it. You mentioned Pierce, and I know you used to work for them. I didn't make it to the Pierce booth.
Yeah.
Which is, to my, regret, because they have my opinion, the best swag every year with their socks.
Right.
Did they have socks this year?
I don't know. I did not know if they had socks. I spent a little bit of time with Daryl, but that was one of the posts I remember in Nick's. It was one of the first posts I ever seen by Nick on LinkedIn.
It'd be sad if
socks.
Daryl didn't have socks again.
Yeah,
I mean, Daryl, you're known for the socks.
Yeah,
right? You better.
I did. I'm wearing them.
Oh.
You probably can't see them, but I've got my Maximo socks on. Yeah, for the Maximo robot.
That's good.
Socks are my favorite swag.
Socks is next up, Adam. It's socks.
Yeah.
Socks is the way.
Socks.
Well, it's funny, Nick, you mentioned about the repowers, because that's kind of how I got started, right? Was doing the Solar Star repower in conjunction with Pierce. Me and Adam have spoke a bunch of this offline, but that's actually an area that we are targeting, is repowers, especially in this area. Right before I left Pierce, I had a client that expressed to me, who I have known for a very long time, like almost 10 years, that when the SREX credits went down, it affected their ROI significantly, right? And they went from projects where they were basically making 3 to 4 times less per year on those projects, and they were expressing a very large desire to repower the projects to restore the value of the SREX back to where it had to be. So I completely agree, and I actually would love to meet with Josh, because that is an area that we are looking to specialize in. For those who don't know, we swapped, in conjunction with Pierce, 138 skids at Solar Star in just about 4 months. Yeah. So we were doing about 10 a week. It was a very good feeling. I think it might have been the first repower of its size, if I'm not mistaken, between that and Topaz, which was happening at the same exact time. But there is a huge need for that in the business, and there's something to be said about taking the infrastructure that you currently have and upgrading it with having not as much initial cost as you would to rebuild an entire project, and basically adding to that investment that you currently made 10 or 12 years back, to bring it up to date and continue with the ROI and continue with the success of that project.
Couldn't agree more. Altair, we spent easily the last 12 months internally building up our strengths to be able to provide repower services in solar. And no, we've put a lot of time into this to be able to position for our customers so that we can offer that service.
That's why our slogan sitting behind Nick is repowering tomorrow today, because that is, I think that there's especially with the shift in construction, right? Shift on the actual policy and where construction projects are. Some construction projects are being halted until policy reshifts. I think that that's creating an unfortunate circumstance for construction, but it's creating a better circumstance for repowers because more people are trying to get into that space now to have their projects upgraded, and get back into that space where the ROI is positive.
Yep.
We'd like to take this time to thank another one of our wonderful sponsors, Podge Engineering. Podge Engineering, making wind and solar all we know it can be. Are your renewable energy assets underperforming or not performing at all? Did you expect many years of longevity and they're failing on you now? Podge LLC offers many customized, engineered products and solutions to get these assets back on track. Podge Engineering also performs root cause analysis, engineering services, procurement, and construction. Visit podge.org. That's PADGE.org. Remember Podge, making wind and solar all we know it can be.
Oh, I love it. All right, more repowers.
What about BESS? I mean, I skipped over it. But I mean, like every other booth, at the conference was BESS related.
A lot of BESS related stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of BESS related stuff. And to piggyback off the repowers, I've done a job, again, in conjunction with Pierce, repowering BESS, where I'm seeing, and I'm sure a lot of people are seeing, a lot of BESS units that are, having unfortunate circumstances on thermal events and things like that. But there's a large space for that as well, because some of these BESS units that traditionally stood, they're either upgrading the technology, which that technology, as Nick just said, everywhere you looked, there was some sort of company that was either upgrading their current BESS products or introducing new BESS products. But that's another place where we're repowering as well, is going in on some of these old BESS containers, installing new ones, right? And getting either a better product or a replacement product in place for another product that had unfortunate circumstance. And honestly, I think the BESS, it took off over the past 5 years, big time. I think it kind of jumped out ahead of solar quite a bit, I feel, and just the pure technology aspect of not relying on the sun to generate this power. It kind of reminds me of crypto in a sense, the way that their business model works, where they're actually taking advantage of the power during off-peak hours to charge these batteries and selling it back to the power company, not only to make a profit, but also to assist the power company with immediate energy that they need to provide to the public in very unfortunate circumstances. It's also helping the infrastructure and the power company, because in those cases, it would cost the power company a lot of money to generate that power at the drop of a dime during peak time.
Yeah.
Level of the grid, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
We called it spinning reserve, right? When they were paying us to run gas turbines or keep them hot, ready to fire up.
Yep.
Be able to be on the grid in less than 15 minutes. And now it's there in the form of batteries. But yeah, stabilizing our grid with the batteries, critical for us moving forward. One of my big clients right now, they're, moving forward with several projects, based on the law that was just passed, safe harboring these projects and getting one piece or another in the ground, to take advantage of those safe harbor opportunities. But they're moving on, not only building BESS on the new projects, but going back and then finding out where they can install them on projects that are already currently running.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
And the carbon footprint as well, right? I mean, a lot of these commercial buildings, I mean, best goes back to not just utility scale, but oftentimes CNI scale and residential scale. It's actually helping with the need to have diesel generators and some generators in places when critical outages occur, right? Like if you're dealing with a plant like a hospital, your home, even some of these buildings like a Home Depot or a Walmart or something, right? Traditionally in the electrical trade, we've installed diesel generators, huge generators on top of these rooftops that burn diesel fuel, create exhaust emissions and all kinds of things like that. Being able to put these things in that place and have an alternative to basically fill the void in those critical circumstances where they need to get back up and running or stay running until the power grid is back restored. I think there's also something to be said about that as well, because they are helping with the carbon footprint.
I like that. So it's level loading the grid so
Yep.
that we don't have maybe brownouts or outage or
Yep.
blackout. Emergency and urgent backup and power. And then the other one of my favorites that we didn't talk about is just the peak shaving software on top of it. So the owner gets to save money. Instead of buying electricity at a high price, they can push what they already have in reserves out to manage their hospital or neighborhood, the whole community, right? So peak shaving to save cost.
And monitor the trends at the same time.
Yeah, it's got all the data there.
Exactly.
Yeah, there are a lot of companies. I'm not really sure. I'd love to learn more about our federal regulations, but I believe we wanted more of the manufacturing and assembly of a certain percentage of them to happen in the country. And the only ones I knew about were EOS, because it's always been here, actually your home state. And then LG, I think, was moving quite a bit of it into the country. But I don't know about some of the other big names, Clue, Sungrow, to name a couple, how they're managing that, but they seem to be growing. So I'm hoping they found the solution anyway.
Another thing that we're seeing a large need for, and we're actually trying to break into this market as well. And this piggybacks off a couple things that Nick said. One of them is the AI, right? And part of it is the delay on MV parts, right? And the need for MV stuff. The data center market in the United States is booming right now, right? And they're steady trying to build these things. I spoke to several transformer manufacturers that were actually expressing that they were putting a large amount of resources to help, complete the data center builds within the market. And that's something I think needs to be said too. I think that 3 of the largest areas right now in the market is probably, as Nick said, BESS, data centers, repowers, 100%, right? So I think we're going to see a large shift. And I think that due to the nature of our trade and what we've done in renewables traditionally, I think you're going to see a lot of renewables companies that are going to fall into those markets in the data centers and try to assist just with the resources, from electrical, MVHV, and SCADA. We're going to see a lot of those renewables companies fall into those markets and start to help assist with servicing and building that market as well.
You've moved us right into future outlook. I love it. So you're seeing more need for data centers, and you guys have already hit repowers, solar, and then more battery. What else? And can you add any thoughts or anything you learned about, how that future outlook looks with our current federal regulation and climate, or maybe some hopes for it?
This is one of the things that stood out to me that I was going to bring up, is that I thought I was going to hear a lot of complaining and moaning, about the change in the law. But the largest client that I work with, they haven't even had a hiccup. They're moving forward. There's been, if anything, they're moving faster than they were, obviously, because there's some drop dead dates that they need to hit to take advantage. But I didn't hear, a lot of complaining about it. It was, everybody was kind of like, hey, we're moving forward. We're going to figure out how to continue to build out the renewable generation, because it is happening. I mean, it's going to be, solar, wind, hydro, and nuclear, and but I was encouraged that there wasn't a lot of complaining and, oh, you just can't wait till the next administration comes in and fixes this. It was just like, hey, let's figure out how to make it work and move forward. There may be a little lower profits for everybody. Everybody's going to feel a little bit of the pain, but let's keep, moving forward with, really reducing the carbon footprint, and preserve this, this world for our kids.
Don't give up.
No.
Keep finding solutions.
I concur. I don't think I heard. We had several conversations with several clients, several O&M providers, owners, and there was never once that I can indicate that I heard someone arguing about a policy. I think it was more about what are we going to do to move forward, as Nick said, keep that stuff going. I know I've seen personally on LinkedIn a lot of people. Nick brought up recycling and how important that is, right? A lot of us guys who've been around for a while, are used to dealing with companies like Fab Tech and stuff like that. I know Emily O'Leary is starting to really have a presence. I'm seeing her a lot with helping out with the recycling and decommissioning these jobs. That stuff is all positive stuff. I'm happy to see that kind of stuff, and I think we need that kind of stuff moving forward if each and every portion of the business is going to continue to proceed, right? So I hope we see more of that stuff, because as I say, me and you talk about all the time, there's enough work here for everybody, and we need everyone's help to get it done.
I agree. All right, let's see. Any final announcements or thoughts, and then I'll have one more question after that. If you guys had anything, and yeah,
I was.
Yeah,
this stood out. It's going to seem. I don't know if it seems dumb or not. It's not dumb to me. I spent a lot of time at the desk at our booth, talking to clients and working with our marketing lady. I'm going to give her a shout out, Anna Phillimore. She did a fantastic job putting the conference together for our team at Bureau Veritas. But I got to see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that these people do to put this conference on, from having the promo materials there, getting meetings scheduled, the actual setup of the booth, having snacks and drinks, running to get. That was one of my major ways I was able to help out, was each day running to whatever lunch counter we were going at to get lunch for everybody. But the behind the scenes work that goes on to put these events on is awesome. And most of the I talked with a couple of the ladies at the AES booth who put together all their swag. They had some really cool swag, and that's their job. That's what they do, and it kind of gets overlooked. But there's a lot of work that goes on so that we can walk around, and talk to people and still be able to come back and have a granola bar or a bottle of water.
right.
Like I said, the behind the scenes stuff, I think those people don't get enough recognition, and I wanted to point that out, that it stood out to me this time, because I was a little bit on that behind the scenes piece. So shout out to everybody that's out there doing that work, and making it so that we can cruise around checking out the cool gear.
Right. Yeah, it's a ton of work, both from RE Plus and every single company. We're working on our first booth for ACP next year, and Ross is leading the charge. And man, there's a lot of things that go into making that happen. So yeah, big kudos to all those folks that do that. Yeah, thanks.
Just for me, I concur with a lot of things that Nick and us discussed. For us, I don't think it's an announcement. I mean, we're still heavily focused on repowers, 24/7 emergency service, trying to fill the void of the underserved critical infrastructure that needs our attention, right? And trying to help our clients prevent critical downtimes and outages, and help increase ROI to the best of our ability, while we're still building out people and investing in our people. And I think that outside of the business, I think that's important too, because obviously off camera, you and I are friends as well as colleagues and partners to some degree, right? but everyone's people, right? All these businesses, the company, the brand is the brand, but the people who go out and service these assets in the middle of the night, right? At the last call, the people who miss their family events to help these clients stay running and to help our businesses become profitable. I can't say how much appreciation those people deserve. And I know that at the core, that's one of the things that I try to push more than anything, is that I wouldn't be able to sit here at this podcast or go to the events or, help serve the clients if it wasn't for the people who oftentimes put our business before themselves.
Relationships.
Yep.
Yeah. Relationships. Couldn't agree more. Hey, Altair. Yeah, I guess maybe the one big one is our affiliate business, Flagstone Remote Operations Center, has just been launched. We're just now bringing that to market. We're super excited about it. And it's also positioned Altair to be able to service long-term contracts for clients, right? Take care of more scope and less of the, transactional kind of services that we've been offering. So very excited about that. Personally stoked about it because I've spent most of my life in that space, the long-term O&M space. So feels like a little bit of back home.
So where it's a rock remote operating?
Yeah, it's here in Tehachapi over at Green Energy's building. So I call it the Z building. It's actually, I had my first day of work in this building in April '97.
Wow.
So it's up on the hill over there. There's two big ones. One, the lower one is Airstreams, and the top one is, it's kind of multi-use, a little bit of Airstreams, Green Energy, and then Flagstone.
Okay. I want to come check it out.
Done.
I would love to check it out, actually.
Done. We'll get a tour going.
Is Flagstone offering third-party services to us? Because obviously one of our large focuses is BOP maintenance. And anytime that you're running a project that has a substation, there's a lot of remote operating control style functionality that goes into that, right? Switching orders and those kind of things. Is Flagstone going to be offering third-party services to other companies that maybe don't have the infrastructure to build this out?
That is the concept. Flagstone is a standalone entity, standalone business. I don't run it, and it is available for anyone for remote operation services.
That's huge, Adam. That's going to be
I just sort of help pave the path and make it available, but it's a standalone available for whoever would like.
It's going to help smaller companies compete in the long-term O&M space and possibly help clients receive better service in some of those cases. Because that's a missing piece, and as a company, that's an overhead, a large one. So I think you deserve a huge hats off to that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
We should do a show. We should do a show from the Rock and let people see behind the scenes what goes on and what it takes. To keep these sites running.
We'll have to figure out some security things there, but I think we can probably make it work. There's a lot of security goes into these rocks.
If it requires a background check, I can't go.
You won't clear. No, it's great. And then, a shout out to the manager of Flagstone, David Grant. If you guys don't know him or haven't heard of him, he's been working and building and managing rocks for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
So the guy that runs that business is the industry expert.
Awesome.
He's the guy you want taking care and setting up whatever protocols are needed for your site.
That's huge when you consider how fast NERC regulations are changing requirements on the sites to stay in compliance. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. One last question. If you were advising someone who's never been to RE+, what advice would you give them?
The same advice that you gave me.
Oh.
This was our first year. Adam kindly told me I was going to spring for a booth, and Adam was like, "Look, you're a newer company. You're going to be a lot more effective on foot." I was a lot more effective on foot. We got to reach a lot of people that I probably wouldn't have got to reach if we were stationary, standing somewhere. And the one big piece I would say is get your badge early. Because I missed quite a few events because the first night was a huge struggle. Get your badge early, take more business cards than you think you need, and talk to more people than you think want to talk to you.
That's solid advice.
I would say don't overbook yourself. And I would say 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen to people, even the people that come up starting off, it's a sales pitch that you don't need. But you never know, and that's how you start building those relationships. But I would say don't book yourself, overbook yourself. Wear comfortable shoes. Maybe, don't partake with every free drink that's offered to you. And enjoy yourself, enjoy yourself and, work on building those relationships with people, because I just feel like in the long run, that's where it's at. You can be as smart as you want to be, but if you alienate people and you don't have those contacts to reach out to when you need help, you're in trouble. But yeah, I mean, not everybody gets to go. When I first started in the business and I would see my boss go to all these things, I used to think, man, I can't wait till someday when I get to go to Las Vegas for power gen. For me, back in the day, it was power gen, in the gas turbine world. I want to go to power gen because I just thought it was, just all dinners and golfing. And but it's a lot of work if you're there not to just party, and if you're there to do business. It's a lot of work. And, so for those guys that you're out there, you just got done you're driving home, while you're listening to this after spending a whole night with, taking Plex off of combiner boxes so you can go IR it tomorrow. Work hard, listen all the time, learn from everybody you can. And someday you'll be, getting to hang out in Las Vegas at RE Plus.
Great one. All right. Well, you stole my key piece of advice on shoes.
Sorry,
man. I got another pair I just had to throw away. The shoes are key. You'll put your steps in. But yeah, networking, build out your professional network, build out your personal relationships, focus on your career. Yep. You got to represent the companies, and the better you can do that, the better you're taking care of yourself in your own career. So get out there and do it. If you're even considering it, the answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
All right, guys. This RE Plus 2025 wrap up has been a hoot. We're gonna do these more often.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
you having us on.
Adios.